Hi everyone, I hope you're doing great today. Okay, so real quick, I want to share a very interesting video with all of us, okay? So I think it was yesterday or so, the head of the WHO made an official statement on Omicron. Omicron is the new COVID-19 variant that was discovered in South Africa just a few days ago. And remember, I made a video to the effect of this new discovery, so-called Omicron, right? And that was the last video that I posted on my YouTube page, and many of you reacted to it differently. Now, no matter how you reacted to that video, I want you to please do me a favor. Pay very close attention to the words of the head of the WHO, to the effect of this Omicron, so that you will understand why I said the things I said in my video and why I made that video and quickly posted it. Many of you may not understand, but please, if you haven't seen it already, I encourage you to go watch it first so you can understand this one. But if you had already watched that one, sit back, relax, and listen very carefully so you can understand what is really going on.
Low-income countries, most of them in Africa, have received just 0.6% of all vaccines. We understand and support every government's responsibility to protect its own people. It's natural. But vaccine equity is not charity. It's in every country's best interests. No country can vaccinate its way out of the pandemic alone. The longer vaccine inequity persists, the more opportunity this virus has to spread and evolve in ways we cannot predict nor prevent. We're all in this together. We call on every member state to support the targets to vaccinate 40% of the population of every country by the end of this year and 70% by the middle of next year. 103 countries still have not reached the 40% target, and more than half of them are at risk of missing it by the end of the year, mainly because they cannot access the vaccines they need, and most of them in Africa. Even as some countries are now beginning to vaccinate groups at very low risk of severe disease, or to give boosters to healthy adults, just 1 in 4 health workers in Africa has been vaccinated. This is unacceptable. With emerging evidence of some waning vaccine immunity against infection, it's clear that in future countries will need tailored booster strategies. WHO's position remains that health workers, older people, and other at-risk groups must be vaccinated first in all countries before those at low risk of serious disease and before boosters are given to already vaccinated healthy adults. There is no doubt that vaccines have saved many lives and helped to quell the pandemic in many countries. Countries that have achieved the highest vaccination rates are now seeing a decoupling between cases and deaths. But in too many countries and communities, the bright light of vaccines has also become a blinding light to the continued need for other tools to stop this virus spreading, to stop it overwhelming our health systems, and to stop it killing. Vaccines save lives, but they do not fully prevent infection or transmission. Until we reach high levels of vaccination in every country, suppressing transmission remains essential. We don't mean lockdowns, which are a last resort in the most extreme circumstances. We mean a tailored and comprehensive package of measures that strike a balance between protecting the rights, freedoms, and livelihoods of individuals while protecting the health and safety of the most vulnerable members of communities. Ending this pandemic is not about vaccines or. It's about vaccines and. Excellencies, dear colleagues and friends, COVID-19 has now killed more than 5 million people, and they're just the reported deaths. The excess deaths caused by the virus and by disruption to essential health services are far higher. An unknown number live with post-COVID condition or long COVID, a condition we're only beginning to understand. Health systems continue to be overwhelmed. Millions have missed out on essential life-saving health services for non-communicable diseases and mental health. Progress against HIV, tuberculosis, malaria, and many other diseases has stalled or gone backwards. Millions of children have missed out on vaccinations for other life-threatening diseases and months of education. Millions of people have lost their jobs or been plunged into poverty. The global economy is still clawing its way out of recession. Political divisions have deepened nationally and globally. Inequalities have widened. Science has been undermined. Misinformation has abounded. And it will all happen again unless you, the nations of the world, can come together to say with one voice, never again. At its heart, the pandemic is a crisis of solidarity and sharing. The lack of sharing of information and data by many countries in the early days of the pandemic hindered our collective ability to get a clear picture of its profile and trajectory. The lack of sharing of biological samples hindered our collective ability to understand how the virus was evolving. The lack of sharing of PPE, tests, vaccines, technology, know-how, intellectual property, and other tools hindered our collective ability to prevent infections and save lives. And the lack of a consistent and coherent global approach has resulted in a splintered and disjointed response, breeding misunderstanding, misinformation, and mistrust. The fabric of multilateralism has been frayed. COVID-19 has exposed and exacerbated fundamental weaknesses in the global architecture for pandemic preparedness and response. Complex and fragmented governance, inadequate financing, and insufficient systems and tools, voluntary mechanisms have not solved these challenges. The best way we can address them is with a legally binding agreement between nations, an accord forged from the recognition that we have no future but a common future. Nations coming together to find common ground is the only way to make sustainable progress against common threats. It's not perfect, and it's not a panacea. It takes compromise. No one gets everything they want, but that's better than so many missing out on what they need.
The guy you just listened to is the head of the WHO. And so every word that comes out of his mouth is premeditated, it's well calculated, and it has a lot of weight and force. So this guy literally in your face was telling you clearly that they are calling on all member states to support the target to vaccinate at least 40% of the population of every country, not before the end of 2022, but before the end of 2021. Keep in mind, 2021 is almost done. We have just literally 1 month to the end of 2021. So you're looking at a timeline of 1 month to reach 40% vaccination of the population in the countries that are located not just anywhere, but in Africa, especially Africa, because he made it clear. The third world developing nations. What does that tell you? How are you able to achieve this without forcing the people to receive the vaccines? If it has taken Africans 1 whole year to achieve just a tiny percentage of coverage in vaccination, how are you able to compress all this percentage of vaccination into just 1 month without doing something very drastic? And then he said they are looking to accomplish 70% vaccination of the population by the middle of next year, 2022. So, do you see why I made the video that I made on Omicron and why I said the things that I said when I made that video? I saw a lot of stuff that made me make that video. Now you heard the man talking about vaccine inequity as if they love Africa so much. In fact, I saw a Nigerian medical doctor resident in the UK, and she was featured on BBC, and she was ranting and raging and fuming about how that they are not giving Africa enough vaccine and how that the leaders in Africa don't care. They want our people to die. And I'm like, whoa. So the greatest problem we have in Africa is vaccination as opposed to hunger? How many times have we seen your outrage over the hunger problem of Africa, which you've been crying about for the longest time? Many of us, for as long as we've been alive, Africa has been suffering from this problem. Nobody cares. When it comes to trade, Africa is treated like trash. When it comes to the hunger problem, nobody cares about us. Literally on everything, nobody cares about Africa. But when it comes to vaccine, the one that we have the most question about, they really now show they love us. So you love us to the point that even when we are reluctant to receive it, you are making effort and putting measures in place to make sure you compel us to receive it. My goodness, hypocrisy has a new name. Now you've heard from the horse's mouth. Maybe this is going to help you now to understand why I made what I made and why I said the things that I said. Maybe this is also going to encourage you to pray more. When you listen to this man and the things he's saying, you will understand that this is not a joke. I pray that God will open our eyes to see, to pray, and to be better prepared. Still love you with all my heart, and I cannot wait to update you the more as I have it. God bless you.